Greetings and salutations, JordanXlord with the Imperial Cultural Society. Today we return to tabletop theology with the newest member of the core deities in the Inner Sea region of Pathfinder. We go through the storied yet tragic life, death, rebirth, death again, undeath, and finally ascension of the former Herald of Arazni, Arazni. While she is not my personal favorite, we here at the Imperial Cultural Society shall ensure we give an equal level of passion and devotion, especially for a goddess of dignity and the abused. We seek understanding and ultimately to help promote a society where such a tragic figure becomes a thing of the past. We stand by those abused, for all outsiders are to be welcomed in these glorious halls. Now, before I get stuck in a desire to do a sermon to the old vengeful fall of outsiders Valderis, let us delve back into the theology of Pathfinder with the mechanics of being a follower of the patron goddess of the abused, of dignity, and of those who suffer willing on death.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
Starting with mechanics, so you can gain your own freedom and do whatever it takes to survive, to aspire to be like Arazni, to be an inspiration for the Forsaken, and deal forth retribution upon those who abuse others. Here are all the mechanics you need to know about the Unyielding. While the Unyielding is her current and, to my knowledge, only title she still claims. During her time as the Herald of Arazni, arguably one of Galarian's greatest gaslighters, she was known as the Red Crusader and the Herald of Arazni. Man, gotta love it when your boss takes all of the cool titles, like Last of the First Humans, and leaves you with the equivalent of a Power Ranger. Later, when she became a Lich, all of her titles include the word Queen in it. Lich Queen, the Harlot Queen, and the Red Queen. I'm starting to understand why she doesn't have any more titles. Her area of concern are the abused, dignity, and unwilling on death, with arguably one of the most straightforward and to-the-point edicts anathema amongst the core deities. As a survivor following Arazni, you are expected to adhere to the following edicts. Act with dignity. Do whatever it takes to survive. Despise and never forgive those who have hurt you. The first two are incredibly pragmatic and honestly understandable. The third one is the one I've seen the most of her critics point to. I will firstly say, if you think this is about being edgy or some sort of spiteful hate creature,
I think that's stupid.
Thank you, No. To me, what the third tenet stands for is not to hold bitter resentment towards your abusers until the heat death of the universe, but it is to block them. Burn those bridges, because honestly, if people are going to abuse you, why keep around anyone who makes you feel lesser? This is why my main circle only includes people that discuss tax evasion, war crimes, stealing copper piping, and our Discord, which is linked below. Her anathema is equally, if not more, straightforward. Create unwilling undead. Insult Arazni. Honestly, these just feel like the easiest edicts anathema to follow, with the only one that might have it easier is Nethys, who's literally just do magic. Her religious symbol is a winged rapier, and you'll never fucking guess what her favorite weapon is. Her divine attribute is constitution or intelligence, which the first is more useful towards survival, meanwhile intelligence is a nod to her mortal days as a scholar. Her sacred animal is the red fox, which I feel is a nod to her Arcadian roots. Arcadia basically being where all of the real-world Native American and Mesoamerica cultures would have presence in the world of Galarian, aka Maznica from Forgotten Realms, except it doesn't suck. Clerics of Arazni will gain access to the spells Endure, Animus Mine, and Nevermind. Which honestly, compared to the last deity we covered, these spells are insane in usefulness. Like, I'm sorry, Abadar, I love you, and you are still my favorite, but clerics of Arazni have cooler spells than you. Endure allows you for one action give temp hit points, which is nice. Animus Mine is you literally psychically implanting a mind bomb in someone's head. And Nevermind allows you to give your enemies a magical lobotomy. Her divine font is either harm or heal, perfect for either therapy through healing or by beating the shit of your abusers. Also healing if you happen to be among the unwilling livingly impaired. Her sanctification is either holy or unholy, which makes sense given her complicated past. Besides, take whatever helps you survive. Her divine skill is intimidation, because there's no compromise with bullies. Her domain includes confidence, freedom, pain, protection, and the alternative domain of sorrow. Honestly, I'm starting to understand her fans more and more, especially from a mechanic standpoint, given she has an actually decent favored weapon compared to, say, I don't know, like the 50+ deities who use maces and daggers. Now, we're going to turn our screen to observe on the planet of Galarian a gathering of her cult. It's not an invasion of privacy, it is research and studying, entirely Empire approved. In the kingdom of Geb, where the dead dine and the living serve, towers rising up like a hand in defiance to the natural cycles of life and death. In the shadows of necromantic thrones, a whisper gathers. A cult devoted to Arazni, the unyielding, gather beneath the spiraling necropolis. Once the Red Queen of Geb, now the goddess of suffering endured and vengeance remembered. In secret crypts and shuttered cellars, her faithful gather, the quick and the quiet, side by side, to do what gods and kings would not. The priest speaks with a voice like a wound. She was slain by tyrants, forgotten by gods, bound in agony beyond death. His words echo through the crypt, carried on the scent of embalming salts and candle smoke. And still, he says, she rose, not by grace, but by will. The congregation murmurs. So too must we rise, a prayer, a promise, a warning. Outside, Geb slumbers, a kingdom embalmed in its own arrogance. The blood lords drink from golden chalices filled with the lives of others. The living scrape by beneath the marble shadows of their tomb palaces. But the cult knows the truth. Even death decays. Their dominion is brittle. Their arrogance our weapon, the priest says. The living have learned to whisper where the dead no longer listen. On a cracked stone altar, the priest unfolds a blood-stained map. The name written upon it, Xylanar, Bloodlord of the South Mausoleum. The man who carved Arazni's faithful apart for study and sport. Tonight, the priest declares, we return the favor. At the hour of fading night, the cult will strike. Servants within Xylanar's estate will break the wards. His guards, hollowed husks, will falter. And then, in the stillness between life and death, vengeance will walk. Do not fight for mercy, the priest commands. Do not fight for life. Fight because she did not die for nothing. Fight because we were forgotten. A chorus rises, the living and the dead chanting in unison. Our wrath is sacred, our vengeance divine! The priest lifts a dagger bound in red cloth. A vial of blood glints in candlelight. Tonight, he whispers, we do not pray for deliverance, we become deliverance. One by one, the candles die, shadows stretch, voices fade to a single chant, soft and relentless. Arazni endures, Arazni avenges through suffering strength, through strength retribution. In Geb, even the dead must learn to fear the living.
You didn't have to cut me off. Make out like you never know we were nothing. And I don't even need your love. Treat me like a stranger.
Unlike the last two entries in this series, we know quite a lot about Arazni's history, arguably one of the most documented people in the setting of Golarion, which does make my job in researching so much easier. Originally, she was a mortal scholar from the Arcadian nation of Zopalti. If I butchered that, so sorry. Born during its golden age in the capital city, Giraldi, which was known for its fine arts and crafts, Arazni devoted her life to studying the ley lines near her city, and made great advancements in improving the water quality. During her travels to expand her knowledge and continue her research, fate would bring her to meet a traveler from the Aslanti Empire. She met the man that we know to be Aerodin. Now, Aerodin is a complicated figure, one that I unfortunately do not have the time to cover right now. But a long story short, he would become the god of destiny and humanity. Together, they had become heroes, saving the land from a brutal warlord named Imictal, who sought to claim the ley lines for the nation of Rezantali. With unlimited access granted to the two, they would study the source of the ley lines, known as the Kumaro tree. Eventually, Arazni would leave her friend to continue his research in the tree. The wiki says that she grew content with what she knew. Given Aerodin's track record, I gather she grew content was a nice way of saying they wanted to be better strangers. Then Arazni fucking dies. Yeah, she just gets killed by a giant snake monster. Oops! 2,632 years later, the two would meet again, with Arazni during this time was judged as worthy of the plane of Nirvana, the plane of pure good. Things had changed. Arazni was now a celestial angel, and Aerodin was a god. Aerodin would ask Arazni to become his herald, leading to Arazni to become active in the affairs of Golarion once again. Little is known of her time as his herald, aka the writers didn't know what to do with the divine herald of Aerodin for at least 2,000 years, but play it off like there's free space for you to fill it in, which, as a hack of a writer myself, completely understandable. However, she would reappear in the records as the patron saint of the Knights of Ozim, a religious military order that fought against Tar-Bathon, the Whispering Tyrant, in a conflict known as the Shining Crusade. Now, them summoning their patron saint is one thing. Normal. Expected even. I'm sure if Catholics could summon in St. George in the flesh to help fight their battles, they totally would. But regardless, they wanted her to lead them in battle, something she was perfectly willing to do. However, the knights had grown doubtful and resentful during this long war and decided to bind her to their will. Yeah, what the actual fuck? No, but seriously, I don't go around binding the spirits of my gods to do my will. Like, what do you think is going to happen afterwards? Do you think Aerodin is the kind of guy who will be chill with someone having control over the right-hand woman? Also, the fact that Aerodin didn't even try to intervene for their supposed best friend, unfortunately, tells me a lot. So yeah, after this incredibly unnecessary display of toxic masculinity, they left to go fight the tyrant himself and his armies of the dead. That's when she would ultimately be humiliated and slain by the tyrant. Because just in case you need a reminder that Tar-Bathon exists purely to be an asshole, in an effort to deal some classic psychological warfare, the Lich would throw her broken body back to her knights during the Battle of Three Sorrows. Thankfully, this calculated risk did not pay off in the end, as what Tar-Bathon did not expect was that Arazni's favorite paladin and Joan of Arc, Iomedae, proceeded to beat the unliving shit out of his generals. While the Crusaders were ultimately unable to find the phylactery of Tar-Bathon, they were able to kneecap him and unlock him away by impaling the bastard with the shattered shards of one of Eredin's holy relics. Arazni's story ends with her being entombed in the newly built citadel of the young nation of Lastwall. And that is the last that we ever saw of her. Video over. Unfortunately for everyone, supernatural abusers weren't going to let dead Herald stay dead. Her body was stolen by her risen knights that were slain and turned into grave knights by the Ghost King of Geb. Geb! Who is Geb? Well, to make it brief, he was a powerful wizard who was at war with another mage king by the name of Nex. Look at these two, and tell me this conflict wasn't purely fueled by sexual tension. So, after Nex vanished, and Geb felt his doomed Yowie, enemies to the end, decided to leave this mortal world, knowing they couldn't stand being in a world where he couldn't be fighting his greatest nemesis. He ended his own life. However, his obsession with his arch-rival kept his soul bound to his kingdom, and he would rise as a depressed, miserable gay ghost, who decided that he's heard enough about women's rights and wanted to introduce some women's wrongs by transforming the corpse of Arazni into a lich. What did he do after forcing Arazni out of retirement from this mortal coil? He tasked her with taking over running the issues of state because he was too busy longing for his assumed-to-be dead boyfriend and doing wizard stuff. Arazni's will and dedication was turned to becoming a tyrannical ruler of the undead nation. She proved to be a better ruler than Geb thought even possible, and kept the nation of Geb from falling apart to infighting for over 800 years, forced to have the ones who stole her corpse as her bodyguards. As a reminder of the failures of the Knights of Ozim, she has been conditioned not to be able to raise a hand to the officials of Geb. Long did she wait, hoping for her old friend Eredin to return to save her. Unfortunately for her, Eredin would fucking die, and the moment she realized that, she fell to despair. As Eredin somehow disappoints another person from the grave, Arazni noticed that her memories were mixed with hatred, misery, rage.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and I am officially back. Yes! Yes! Yes!
She realized that she was somehow connected to her murderer, Tar-Bathon. Somehow the two were linked together. Thus, Arazni began to plot her escape. Just in time to be unfortunately within the vicinity of Tar-Bathon's new space laser.
You wouldn't dare.
Her body would reform, and she realized that Tar-Bathon's newest weapon was made from the pieces of her former friend's shield, and that it had the power to disrupt the ties between her soul and her phylactery, eventually becoming a quest giver to a group of adventurers to keep her former captors busy while she went for round 2 with her long-hated murderer. When Tar-Bathon was slightly inconvenienced by the arrival of a victim of his that somehow came back, he pointed his new death laser, the Radiant Fire. In a flash, Arazni was gone. And with her disappearance, Geb was heartbroken because he actually had to do his fucking job again.
How could this happen to me? I made my mistakes, got nowhere to run.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and I am officially back. Yes! Yes! Yes!
With all ties to her abusers broken, Arazni the Unyielding was born. Relishing in this newfound freedom, Arazni would, for the first time since her mortal days, begin to live. While reluctant to the mantle of godhood, due to the rather mixed experience she's had with mortals, especially with those in Geb who still offer empty prayers, she dismissed them and most of her true believers as sycophants. However, her story would ring true and inspire resilience and determination in those trapped by unwilling bonds. Now, with full divinity and the slow healing process, she began to entrust her power in more and more of the Forsaken, gathering allies to aid in the fight against those who would abuse power over another. She would slowly gain trust in both herself and in mortals, with the last vestiges of her undeath fading, returning her back to the appearance more familiar with her mortal adventuring days. She knew the next task would be to reclaim what the Wizard King Geb had taken from her. For when Geb forced her into Lichdom, he had taken her heart, liver, lung, and spleen, and put them in magical jars known as the Bloodstones of Arazni. Worried that these relics could be used to claim dominion over her like so many had, she began enlisting the aid of adventurers to reclaim them. The following part is spoilers for the adventure path for Claws of the Tyrant. So if you're playing in that adventure path and do not want to be spoiled, please skip to the following. Now with that being said, so, while Arazni was trying to find the suspicious mason jars Geb put her body parts in, during this adventure, it would be discovered that one of the Knights of Ozim who acted as a bodyguard for Arazni during her time as the Red Queen, Seldeg Behelis, who wanted to get back in her good graces and decided the best way to do this is to perform a ritual with powerful relics to both Arazni and Iomedae, the inheritor and successor of Eredin, except they are not a terrible human being. This ritual, just rewrite history. Have the two gods replace spots as Iomedae would be tormented and humiliated by the Whispering Tyrant, and Arazni would take Iomedae's place as the successor to Eredin. Rising to stop this mad Grave Knight, Arazni, and the Knights of Lastwall. Who are the Knights of Lastwall? Well, they're the successors to the Knights of Ozim, except they had a wisdom modifier that was in the positive. How the story ends depends on the groups who play it. If your players win, yay! Everything is kept as is, and Arazni no longer has to worry about being controlled by the Cum Jar. If not, well, that's entirely up to you, but very likely, nothing good. And with that all being said, let us turn our attention to an archetype that is associated with the Knights Reclaimant, those who swear the Crimson Oath.
With blood and rage of crimson red, we fill men's souls with darkest dread, and twist your minds to pain and hate. We'll burn you all. That is your fate.
As spoken by Knights of the Order, we swear with voices cold as death, while yet we stand and yet draw breath. We shall not let the dead endure, nor let them taint our land's venture. We shall not falter, shall not runt, but cut them down and burn them out. We swear on vigil-shadowed walls, our crimson oath, the tyrant falls. Honestly, quite an oath. And as I was taking a lot of oaths themselves, it's pretty snazzy. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, it is confirmed by the Pathfinder Adventure Path Clause of the Tyrant that Arazni herself is the origin of the mysterious power that is the Crimson Oath. Honestly, there are a lot of feats associated with this archetype, and I only have approval for so much of a length in this broadcast, so I'm going to go over only a few of them. Starting with Knight Reclaimant Dedication. The archetype that is about fighting undead is really good at fighting undead. You gain expert proficiency in stealth and survival, and when you succeed on a save against undead special abilities, you get a critical success instead, which is just helpful. Invoke the Crimson Oath. You gain a new focus spell. What does Invoke the Crimson Oath do? Well, look over here. When you invoke the Crimson Oath, you gain the ability to unleash its power. Pretty much, this is an area of effect strike. With the remaster, the positive damage is likely converted to vitality, so you gain the ability to bypass 99% of undead resistances, because her vengeance cannot be quelled. The Tyrant falls. First of all, the fact they get a level 20 feat is wild. But the fact this is pretty much an anime power-up, and again, with the remaster changing positive and negative to vitality and void, you can basically invoke the Crimson Oath at will. While the extra damage seems kind of rather lacking, especially at level 20, I can't say for sure without taking consideration the other bonuses and effects you would have at that level. Honestly, all I hope is that this archetype eventually gets a remastered version, just because I want to see this all presented a tad more coherently. Now, onto my final thoughts. Arazni honestly has so much lore associated with her, and the more and more I read about her and hear from her fans why she's their favorite, also the more I read into this, I'm starting to understand why people hate Aerodin within the community. Oh boy, I thought it was a little bit of an over-exaggeration. No, I get it now. Arazni is an incredibly unique and cool deity that has great potential to be a patron for an adventuring party or an active NPC and a player story. I'll be honest in saying that before I delved into this, I was originally not a huge fan of her, primarily just because I was sore about the loss of Gorum, and I was jealous the writers had given her so much attention. This is one of my favorite parts of doing this program for you all. It forces me to learn and ultimately expand my horizons and gain further appreciation. Now, all I want to see in the future is the Arazni therapy arc. She deserves friends. And with her new Herald being the Angel Himbo from Wrath of the Righteous, all I hope is that we get to see our girl flourish. Thank you all for coming to today's presentation. If you enjoyed this and wish to see more, please comment, like, and subscribe below. But if nothing else, please remember the Imperial Decree. Stay safe and stay glorious.